Speed Ups Garage here. We're back again, and as you could see from the earlier clip, we have a 2003, right?
Yeah.
540i. This is the 4.4 liter V8 with the 6-speed. Grayson just bought it. Grayson's holding the camera. Pretty cool car, but pretty much right away we found that it needs some love. So very common on these Bimmers, and I've done quite a few with my past as a automotive mechanic. Now I'm a motorcycle mechanic. Kind of switch worlds, but I still love it all. Valve covers are leaking. We have a pretty nasty vacuum leak. It's hard for you guys to see probably because the lighting in the barn is not very good, but this nipple here on the intake is snapped. So we're gonna see if we can figure something out with that. But basically, first things first, we're gonna do the valve covers and kind of show you guys a few tricks here and there. Basically, step one is just get everything out of the way. It's not a terrible job once you do that. We're gonna get these cabin air filter elements out of there. The intake is coming out because we're actually gonna be upgrading to a Dynon one, but we just found out last night the Dynon one actually goes before the MAF and it dumps like down to here, down in the bottom of the engine bay there to get cold air. But they don't give you anything like this, and we looked online, we couldn't find this intake boot anywhere. So might get creative, make something ourselves. That'll kind of be the last thing. But we're also going to change the oil, change the plugs, just try to get this thing running real nice. Mechanically it's pretty good. Apparently Vanos was just done, so we're going to get in there, and just done, I mean 20,000 miles ago. And we're gonna do this. So without further ado, let's start tearing this thing apart. So you can see right here, guys, I went to pull we already knew this was broken, but I went to pull this. I hate these, by the way, what BMW does with these. They're so frustrating. And it literally just pulled half the fitting right off. So again, we're probably gonna have to do something with that. But gonna go ahead, get the rest of the boot off, and then hopefully rip the rest of the airbox, because like I said, the Dynon one is gonna come way down here. Later, we might actually have to pull the whole front bumper to do that. We can do it. It's just one of those things like, damn, that's a lot. But that's gonna be later, because first things first, valve covers. And you can see the condition they're in. We're actually gonna be painting them, so that's gonna be pretty cool. So next up, guys, we got those big cabin air filter elements out of the way. You can see where they dump straight into the cabin there. And now, I'm trying to sort of take this in steps, because I have done a fair amount of these, but it's been a while. So next up, we're gonna get the coil covers off and get all the plugs and coils out. That way they're out of the way, and we'll just keep rolling. Before we do any of that though, Grayson's engine cover was kind of broken. And if you ask me, and I think if you ask any guy who's into engines, it seems kind of stupid to direct heat directly back at the engine with the plastic cover. That's just my opinion. So what we're gonna do is actually just pull the brackets off to kind of clean this up a little bit. And that's what we'll do first here. And then from there, plugs and coils out. So guys, check this out. We're hoping that the same dude who did the Vanos didn't do the valve. I think you guys can see that, right? Look at all the damn oil in there. The back plug it's all the way up to the middle of the porcelain. So, and I'm seeing around even these top bolts here, either they didn't get them tight or they just did a terrible job cleaning this thing, because I mean, that's no good. So I'm really glad we're doing this. But again, hopefully the guy who did Vanos just was like, all right, new guy, you finish it, you do the valve covers, because I mean, that's no good. But this is why we do routine maintenance. This is why we take things apart, because then we find stuff like this and we fix it. All right, guys, the tomfoolery continues with this thing. Check this out. So I was pulling one of the coils, and when I pulled the coil out, the stud came out, right? Not a big deal, not a big deal at all. But you can see they tried to JB weld, or honestly, that doesn't even look like JB weld. It looks more like freaking epoxy. The ear back on there so they could bolt the coil down. again, the more I look at this, I'm like, hopefully it was just some new guy. Apparently it was Bavarian specialist or whatever, which you hear that, you're like, oh, they should know what they're doing with bimmers. I mean, that's crazy, man. Just another thing. Again, it's not going to matter because we have one of the bolts for that coil that'll let us cinch it down. So not the end of the world, just another thing where I'm like, come on, guys, you know, or at least just let the customer know that you're going to try that. But that's wild, man. We'll see what else we find. So guys, next thing is getting these big blocks of whatever out of the way. They're basically down on the injectors. It's 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. 10 mils, obviously. And basically, it's hard. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see that, but I like to use a pick to get down in there. There's these tiny little metal tabs that hold the injectors on. So you basically just want to pull them off so that they're not grabbing on the tabs. And like I said, best way to do it, best tool is this 90-degree pick. God. Oil, man. Guys, this is next level oil everywhere. It somehow is in the injectors too. Through this, I don't know how that, maybe, I don't know if you guys have seen that meme where there's that like good looking chick with the thing of oil. And she's like, I'm going to top my oil off. And she's driving a BMW and she just dumps it everywhere. I'm starting to think that's what happened to this one. But you can see I got these tabs. You don't have to get them all the way off, because you get them all the way off and they're pretty much gone. Like, you're not finding those again. If you get them caddy cornered like this, then my handshake, I don't know why. Then you can just pop this off. The back one didn't even have one on there, so I'm not that worried about that. But just a quick tip there. I'm actually gonna just pop them back to where they were real quick, if I can. There. And then that way they're ready to go when we pop this back on. I think my theory wasn't half off. Grayson made a good point. Oil fills on this side. Again, I think they just pulled the thing from the meme, that girl from the meme, and just dumped it, the oil, just straight up. We're like, oh, let's fill it, and just missed, because this is where the fill is. This whole side, you can see it's covered in oil. The valve cover can't leak upward into an injector connector, but check this out. The injectors are filled with oil. So Grayson made a good point saying they probably just missed when they were filling this thing, because if you look at this side, it's not that bad. So another thing, guys, I mean, we're finding some stuff on this thing. I'm glad we're filming this, because some people might not even believe that, but that's why we're here. We're gonna make this thing clean and we're gonna make it better. We're kind of combating with the dudes are mowing outside, so we're sort of trying to get videos in while he's over on the other side of the property. So you guys can see, we got mount injector on top of the motor here. Pretty much the reason I did that is just to keep them up and out of our way. We did the thing with the picks, and just, again, you don't have to fully pull those clips, guys. Just get them like caddy cornered on, so you pull one side of the clip down, and that's enough to release the tabs and you can pull them up off there. And as you can see, that's exactly what we did. And so we got both of these things just zip tied together up top, and then I have them zip tied to this vacuum line down here, just to keep them up on top of the intake and out of our way. Now from here, doing valve covers, when everything's out of the way, it's gravy, it's fun. So just a zillion 10 millimeters, easy as pie. We're gonna zip it off, and then hopefully just get everything around here nice and clean, and we'll paint them. Run a little low on SD space, so we're gonna keep it short, but I'm gonna get them both off, and then you guys will see it then. All right, guys, so I had Grayson do the other side. We got all those, I like to call them bushings. They're basically just like little rubber discs that go around the bolt. Got them all out of there. So really, it's gravy now. All we're down to doing is just prying them off and taking a look under there. So come to this side. You want to be careful not to mar the surface when you pry on this. Usually it's better to like find a spot where you can fit something like this. But I've done a couple of these, so I know that if I stick it above, there you go, just like that. So I'm just gonna carefully pry this thing away. And guys, something we saw while we were doing this, every single one of those little rubber caps that was on the bolts, hard as a rock. So I'm thinking the guys that did Vanos on this thing, or whatever they did, were just like, oh, let's just reuse the gasket. Don't do that, especially if it's hard. Because that makes sense. We've seen around where the bolts go, look, they're all wet. For one thing, they were loose too. So it was like a triple whammy. It's no wonder these things were leaking. But here's the fun part. Popping this thing off. Just carefully, I'm hitting the brake line. And then also, sometimes the gasket like grabs one way and not the other. So, oh, I see. I was getting stuck on the ground cable there. There we go. Freedom! There you have it, dual overhead cams. You can see this thing needs some love. Yep, hard as a rock, where it matters, so no wonder. Also guys, a good way to do it too, because you don't have to use an insane amount of force, is you get this under there and you just twist it. So you can see I already got it, bada bing, just like that. So, go ahead and just carefully, try not to get the ground strap stuck this time. And this side might be a little more difficult because we got these lines going on here. But I will carefully see. Okay, I see what we're doing here. You kind of just have to, like, it's one of those things, you just have to sort of finagle it out of the way. It's not like you can just pull it straight up, obviously. So, get this line out of our way. Almost there. Almost there, part two. There we go. Side two. This is gonna be looking much better soon. All right, guys, so we found the root problem here. I mean, there were plenty of problems, but basically, I'm still on the whole, like, I think the dude who did Vanos was just handed it to the newbie at the shop. Because these timing chains look good, right? These actually look brand new. Thank God, right? We didn't want to get in here and be like, oh God, look at all that slack. But a total of 7 of the valve cover studs were stripped. And some of, I don't know if the camera's definitely not gonna pick that up, but you can literally see the threads have been stretched, because I think what happened was the dude tried to like tighten them with like a 3/8 long ratchet, because 7 of them stripped, and that's why they were loose, and that's why the valve covers were leaking. So pretty bad. Whatever shop this was at, I mean, like, come on guys, you can do better than that. I mean, this is a tiny M6x1 thread. You got to use a 1/4 inch on that. So basically how we found that was with these cam cap covers on there, you're supposed to be able to torque the nuts down to 89 inch-pounds. 7 of them were spinning. So what we're gonna do, it's a little bit hokey, but it's really the only thing we have to do, because I'm not drilling into those. We need to just JB weld them in there. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, guys, so just, dang shadows, right? Let me see if I can, that's a better angle. Just threaded it down. You can see the copious amount of red Loctite I used on that thing. But it tightened up, which is good. Like, I felt it with my 1/4 inch, it stopped. So, and you can see it's nice and sturdy. So I'm just praying that that holds up. I mean, the threads are brand new, and in theory, my threads are good, which I'm pretty sure they are. When we go to tighten that nut to 89 inch-pounds, which again is nothing, then it should just tighten up that stud instead of spinning it out. So 1 down, 6 to go. So got 2 done. Sorry, I probably just blinded you guys. There's one of them. You can see the threads are much larger, M8 by 1.25 into the cap, and then I ground down just a little bit on the stone wheel there and thread it, cut M6 threads all the way down. So basically that way we can bolt everything down and the larger threads won't get in the way. So I got 1 done, and then number 2 that I just finished is right there. So that one's done. Really happy with that. I just finished, I'm actually, like I said earlier, I'm literally drilling it by hand because the aluminum is so soft that I can. And now I'm just about to tap this back one with this M8 by 1.25 tap, which I modified slightly so it's more of a finishing tap now. But it usually just takes me a couple times of walking it in and out. I just wanted to give you guys a shot of this because I think it's kind of cool. But of course this line is right in my way. But yeah, just thought I would show you guys that. All right, y'all. So we got 3 of these bearing caps done. It's funny, I was looking up torque specs for the cam cap, and somebody had the same problem we did, so he replaced his cam caps instead of going through all this BS. But I guess part of me kind of likes repairing stuff like this. So you can see we got 3 in there. You almost can't even tell, right? So there's one we replaced. There's number 2. You can actually tell on that one because it's got a bit of a cone on it. And there's number 3. Number 3, I might have done a tiny bit crooked. It's kind of hard to tell on camera or even in person, just because this fuel line was in my way and I was having trouble getting the tap to walk in there. But basically now it's a little scary, but I found the torque specs and we're gonna be okay because I have to pull this cap to actually get this drilled to the right spec and like do this right. I'm not as worried about pulling this one because it's right in the middle and I have 2 caps on either side of it. And I just, like I said, I just found the torque specs for it. So I'm going to go ahead and zip that out. I'm going to take a picture of it too, because you can see it's labeled on the casting, but I just want to make sure I get it in there right, because sometimes they're directional or sometimes it's kind of hard to explain, but they're like bearings sort of wear a certain way. So if you were to flip it, it could mess things up with just how the camshaft has been wearing to the cap. So right now I'm going to go ahead and pull it. So let's go ahead. Might as well document this so I can look back on it like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or oh, you had to do it. So there's one. Just carefully loosen them up. And what I like right now that I'm feeling is I don't feel any tension on these nuts after I crack them loose. So yeah, I can feel there's not any tension on those, so it makes me a little bit less nervous, because I was telling Grayson I've heard horror stories of guys, sorry I keep on you guys, putting camshafts or taking them out where, here we go, where they just, here, let me get a picture of it for you guys too, actually, where they put them in wrong. And if you tighten it, say like one at a time, there's always pressure on one side of the lobe somewhere because the lobes are hitting the valves. So I've actually heard of guys bending camshafts and then, you know, you're screwed. But this, I think we're going to be just fine. There it is. It's actually, this is a good time to just like check wear. To me, that looks pretty normal. It doesn't seem like anything insane, but this way I can do this on the bench, drill it out, put my oversized stud in there and get it just right. And then that way I won't be getting chips in the engine, because if you look on this side, I know I've been talking forever, but you can actually see this bottom one. There's no way I'd be able to get a drill bit in there and do it the way I want to do it. So for the top 2, we're going to leave them in the car, but something that makes me feel even better about this is, yes, I have one cap on the last here, but to pull this one, I'm not that worried, because if you guys look, none of these exhaust lobes are actually on lift. So there shouldn't be much tension on it at all, which is great. So I'm going to go get this one ready. We're going to get it back in the car. All right, guys, it's getting late here at the hangar. Got the last stud made and in there. And basically, just because I'm kind of OCD about this kind of stuff, I'm gonna put a little bit of assembly lube on the bearing itself. This stuff is Ultra Slick from Permatex, and it's like, look at this. It's like freaking, I don't even know what to call that, like what food to compare that to. But basically that just, that'll help to have that on there, because it'll prevent any like metal on metal contact before the engine actually builds oil pressure. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then you make sure, I'm gonna spread it on there a little bit too, just because, again, not a bad idea. And then just gonna pop the cap back on there. Feel good about that because I know it's the right way. I took a picture. And then these are 11 mil bolts. So we are gonna run them down by hand first. Just carefully, because obviously I probably, if I was smarter, I would have every inch of this engine, top of the head, covered so I couldn't drop a nut down in there. But I didn't. So, and then this gets torqued to, just kind of do this real quick, 124 inch-pounds. I have access to a software where I can find the torque specs for something like this, so I like triple checked everything, and it's the right spec. So just gonna go ahead. It's obviously with an inch-pound wrench because they're inch-pounds, so gonna just get them tight, and you kind of want to walk them down even. So there's one. Very satisfying. I like click type. I'm not an electronic guy for torque wrenches. Two, and then I just like to double check. That one's good. That one's good. They're not going anywhere. So this side is fully repaired. We got all of them Loctited in there. It was 1, 2, 3, 4. We're all stripped out, which is crazy. But that's all we had time for today, which I know it doesn't seem like we got much done, but a lot of custom work going on here. And tomorrow we're gonna go ahead and finish this side so we can get everything back together finally. It's just one of those things when you work on cars, you find things and that's just how it goes. But we're gonna get it right, and I feel better about not doing JB Weld even if it did hold up. So you're gonna have no time, but we're gonna go get some sleep and we'll be back at it tomorrow. What up, guys? It's not a new video, but it's a new weekend. I think this is the third weekend we've been working on this thing. So I kind of forget what I filmed last to tell you guys, but it's a good thing that JB Weld didn't work on the studs because I'll show you a picture right now. There's an oil passage that goes through the camshaft cap. And actually what's crazy is these are oil passages here. So oil comes up through, I think, this is what I'm thinking is I think it starts where, because obviously Vanos probably gets fed first, but either way, it comes up through the cam bearing and it actually gets fed through the middle of the bolt hole. There's a passage on there and goes through this tiny bar. It's got holes everywhere, and then obviously that distributes oil to the bearings. So if the JB Weld by some miracle had worked and we torqued it down, probably what would have happened is the oil passages would have been blocked by the epoxy, and we would have starved the top end of oil and it would have blown up, which would have sucked. And then we got lucky again because I noticed when I oversized the hole, I'll show you another picture right now, it actually was blocking the oil passage because I went 2 sizes bigger, metric, with the studs. So basically what I had to do was pull the studs back out that I had already fixed and then grind them down enough so that the oil could still get through. So we're at a point right now where every oil, I just call them oil bars. I'm sure there's some kind of crazy German name for them. But we got them all torqued down to 89 inch-pounds. That's how we started this whole journey, is because I went to try that and 7 of them spun on us. I think total ended up being 8, actually. I had to do one more because there was one more that spun when I went to tighten it, believe it or not. So we got the surfaces all clean. If you guys look over here, got brand spanking new valve cover gaskets. I was just popping this one on there. We'll take you along for the ride. I'm going to throw the next one on there. We'll show you where you want to put your silicone on the top of the heads, and then we'll get them on there. It's about time, right? So let's do it. All right, so Grayson and I just got valve covers sitting on here, or valve cover gaskets sitting on there. And then basically what we did is we removed every washer from the old seals. Just what you got to do. And then for the bolts, you actually kind of have to like pry them out of there. So we did that. can see we got all new circular seals. So it's finally time, guys. I'm stoked. What we're gonna do is we're gonna show you where to put the silicone. This is kind of like a preference thing. A bunch of guys are gonna tell you different things, but I would say a pretty good rule of thumb is, especially on a valve cover that goes past the timing cover, it's a very good idea to put a little bit of silicone on the gap. So you can see this is the timing cover gasket. Always just get a little dollop on there. You don't have to go crazy with like a giant bead, because then you'll have more mess outside of it. And then with this particular engine, it actually has reliefs in the back of the valve cover where the cams are. So what I like to do is I just put a little bit on the corners of where the circle, the half moon starts. So if you guys just want to see this, like I said, you don't have to go crazy. Some people will tell you do, but to me that's perfect right there. That's just enough. And then obviously you conserve a lot of silicone doing that. So I kind of like to have a little ball, so that I didn't like as much, so I just put a little more on there. There you go. This stuff smells real funky too. And then it's probably gonna be tough for you guys to see, but I'll get a little in the back. Again, don't have to go insane with this. Just a little bit on the corners. And then I brought my mirror home this weekend from work, just because when you're doing a valve cover like this, the last thing you want to do is pinch it or have it be off in a spot. So what you do when you're done putting it on there is you, I wonder where I put the cap for this thing. You check it with the mirror around it, and you'll see the valve cover, make sure there's no openings or gaps. So let's get it on there. All right, freshly painted valve cover, brand new gaskets. I'm gonna try not to scratch her up too much. I'm gonna try to get it on in one nice motion. So this side, I think I remember being a little bit easier. Like we had a bit more room. So here goes nothing, guys. Just carefully walk it down. It's tough because you kind of have to finagle it, but you don't, there we go. You don't want to pinch the gasket. It's kind of just a balancing act. Make sure that ground wire doesn't get caught either. And then, boom. Down we go. I just need to make sure the half moons are on the back, because I think I felt it hot. Yep, I missed. It's a good thing I checked. There we go. Let's see. Dude, beautiful. So now we will get our bolts in there and tighten her down. Huge success. I know if you were just doing valve covers, this would be like whatever, like you just put a valve cover on. But after doing all those oversized studs, all that tapping and threading and all this crazy stuff to get it down, I'm super happy. We got, basically it's a good idea to check, especially the bottom side in my experience with the mirror. Make sure your half moons are good in the back. We're all good. We got the silicone dabs where they need to be. Everything is tightened down on this side. I'm stoked. These got a little bit dusty, so they don't look fantastic, but I mean, that's a decent finish for, you know, just two dudes in a garage, you know? So we're gonna get the other side on, which I'm actually not as worried about because all the stud lengths look pretty good. We're gonna tighten all those down and then keep reassembling the entire thing. Hopefully fire this thing up tonight. As I like to say, bada bang. They're on there, guys. So basically just, I'm sure there's a torque spec for these. I'm sure Bimmer guys will be like, you gotta torque it to exactly this, no more, no less. I've done a lot of valve covers on BMWs, and it's funny, there was a long time when I was a mechanic, I didn't torque anything. It just came down to like axles, flywheel bolts, but a lot of stuff we did by feel, just because of the sheer amount of work we did. So I did them all by feel, just with my little 1/4" driver. They all felt good. Basically what I wanted to see was that our seals crushed And I know you guys are probably looking at that one thinking, what's going on there? That is the stud that I made completely from scratch because I just refused to stop last weekend until my tools stopped working and I just like couldn't cut threads anymore for some reason. So I basically, the stud was a little too long, so this would have bottomed out. So what I did is I stacked 2 washers under it so that it would actually crush the seal and tighten down. So that's why that looks a little different. It's on the inside. We're never gonna see it. Even if you could see it, I don't think Grayson would really care. He just wants to drive this damn thing at this point. So we're gonna start throwing everything else back together. I think because it's gratifying, I'm gonna throw the coils in there and we'll go from there.
Yeah.